Our own people don't have any place. Where are we going to put all these other people? And that's not being bigoted to ask that question and hateful or whatever. That's just being sensible and practical. Like, look, if I'm throwing a banquet and I have enough food to feed 200 people, that means I can have 200 people at my banquet. You know, if somebody says, "Well, why don't we invite 50 extra people?" My response to them would be, "Well, okay, yeah, but where are we going to get the food to feed them?" Well, we got to figure that out. And if we're going to invite 50 extra people, that's 50 extra mouths to feed. If I've got enough food to make 200 plates, then I don't have enough food to make 250 plates. So I got to figure out now, how am I going to get the food to make those additional plates to feed those additional people? And I got to do that before I invite them. So I mean, I'm not going to say, well, no, we're not going to say right off the bat, well, no, we can't do that. What I'm going to say is, how are we going to get the extra food? And if we can figure that out, we can invite those extra people. Otherwise, we can't feed them. So how are we going to work that? You know, I mean, it's very simple. It's just common sense. If you got the food to feed 200 people, you feed 200 people. If you can come up with food to feed additional people, then fair enough, invite your additional people. Otherwise, we keep it to the number we can feed. You know, same thing. We only have so much housing here. The people who are already here, the Canadian public, is being squeezed out of housing. More people are coming in. There's no place to put them. We got tent cities springing up everywhere. It's really bad. And what's the solution? Well, we'll bring in more. You know. Well, where are we going to put them? We don't have room for the people we already got. We don't have the housing for them. I mean, it's a big country. It's a huge landmass, but we don't have the housing. We don't have the infrastructure to support all the additional people. And some of those people are our enemies. But as I've said, our enemies are also from within. Not all of those people are our enemies, but some of them are. And we don't know who's who, because we don't ask questions. We just throw the door open. Come on in. Come on in, you know. You want to come in? Come in. We don't know where we're going to put you, but come on in. You know, like, this is what we do. And this is our enemies who are running things now, our internal enemies that are doing this. So, that are inviting all these additional people in. And, you know, it's like, again, getting back to the analogy of the banquet, I've got food to feed 200 people, and somebody goes over my head and invites an additional 50 or 100 people. So on the day of the banquet, I'm confronted with more people than I can feed. You know? Well, who would do that to you but your enemy? That's the sort of thing somebody with malicious intent would do. And that's what we have running the show now. We have people with malicious intent. We have people who hate us. Justin Trudeau, he hates you. If you're a Canadian citizen, he hates you. Chrystia Freeland, she hates you too. The same is true in the United States. Joe Biden and that train wreck of a vice president of his, that woman, I can't think of her name now, but they hate the American people. They truly do. They hate the American people. See, both our societies have given ourselves over to everything corrupt. We celebrate everything corrupt. And now we have been given over to our enemies. We are now enslaved by our enemies. And our enemies aren't a foreign power. We haven't gone into the captivity under the Egyptian Pharaoh. That hasn't happened. But we are still under the thumbs of our enemies. We're still enslaved by them. And when the head of our national police force is saying, I want more ways to punish Canadians who criticize politicians, that man is your enemy. Anybody who wants to take away your constitutional rights, and we have a weak constitution. We really do here in Canada. We have a terrible weak constitution. We have a constitution that was written in such a way to give the appearance of having rights without actually granting us any rights. That's what we've got here. But still, the things that the man is talking about are anti-constitutional. He's talking about wanting to take away our right to free expression. But see, our Constitution says within reasonable limits. And all our rights are framed that way. You have this right, but within reasonable limits, which has to be interpreted then. The U.S. at least has a strong constitution. It says your rights are God-given. Well, if they're God-given, then the government can't take them away. Only God can take away what God has given, you see. Our Constitution basically says the government allows you to have rights within reasonable limits. And that's why we're in the mess we're in. And right now, the U.S. government is even trying to dismantle their Constitution. But they're having a tough time because their Constitution is strong. They're still managing to do it, though, a little bit at least, in stages. But they're chipping away at it little by little. In Canada, our Constitution is weak, and our government, and it actually has things built into it to enable the government to take our civil rights. And when they say they take our constitutional rights, so they say, yeah, you have the right to free expression within reasonable limits. See, that's an issue, and your right is granted to you by the government, not by God. You don't have a God-given right to free speech. What you have is a government-given right to free expression within reasonable limits, which will be determined at a future date. That's what we got. Well, I mean, that's nothing. A contract like that's really vague would never stand up in court. If you wrote a contract to start a business or to buy a piece of property or to buy a vehicle or anything else, it would never stand up in court to take out a loan or anything. If you went to the bank to take out a loan, to take out a mortgage or to get a car loan or a line of credit or anything like that, and the contract was written that vaguely, where the contract basically said, well, the bank agrees to lend so-and-so some money, and so-and-so will pay interest on that money, and it'll all be determined at a future date. Well, that wouldn't stand up in court. We'll pay interest on that money within reasonable limits to be determined at a future date, and the amount of money we will lend will be a reasonable amount of money to be determined later, and all that. Yeah, I mean, that would never stand up in court. That'd be such a weak document that it would never stand up. That's what our Constitution here is like. It's a very vaguely worded, a wishy-washy, yeah, you have these rights that we the government grant the Canadian citizen these rights within reasonable limits. What the hell does that even mean? So yeah, and that's the problem, is then the courts have to determine what it means, and of course the judges are all political appointees. So how do you think they're going to rule when they owe the sitting government their jobs? I mean, you might rule in favor of the sitting government that wants to take your rights away and enslave you. That's what they might do because they owe that government their job. And so, yeah, it's a mess anyway. Basically, we've fallen away from God. We've embraced every kind of corruption, every kind of sin, and we're all guilty for it to one degree or another. And we have been given over to our enemies. We have become slaves of our enemies. It's funny how that works. Hey, history keeps repeating itself. You know, we fall. A people falls away from God. God withdraws His blessing. He withdraws His influence. He says, "All right, you don't want my input. You don't want to hear from the sky genie over here. Then you just go ahead and you go it alone and see how that works out for you." And what do? We destroy ourselves. We do stupid things. We make stupid decisions, and we get ourselves into slavery. We get ourselves into slavery. We fall into the hands of our enemies. And they're stronger than we are, and they enslave us because our strength comes from God. If we don't have that, then we're screwed. Basically. But we're so stupid we have to go through this to realize. And right now, the majority of the Canadian people, no matter what happens, they're still celebrating and wanting to wallow in their sin, and they're wanting to criticize God. They're wanting to say, well, God's ways aren't adjusted properly. God's book, the Holy Bible, is a hate monger's book. People who believe in God are hate mongers. Only good, decent, enlightened people who have pure hearts support all this stuff. If you're a good, decent, enlightened person with a pure heart, then you support the con artist and the sexual pervert and the bully. That's basically the mentality in this country now. Now there are a certain number of us who are going against that, but our national police force has put us on notice. They're going to punish us for that. We're going to jail. Isn't that something? We've fallen into the hands of our enemies. That's what's happened. We've fallen into the hands of our enemies. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, during the trucker convoy protest in Ottawa, they ran over citizens with horses. They actually rode horses into the crowd and trampled citizens. They trampled an elderly woman with a walker. And then they laughed about it because the communications got leaked. The private messages and so on, and the stuff that they wrote on their own. They have like a private thing where they can communicate with each other, like a website or whatever. And the messages got leaked. They were laughing about it. They thought it was great. Mowing down an old lady with a horse. Trampling an elderly woman with a horse. Oh, we got to do more of that. That was great, Like this is the thing. One cop was going on about how, coming to Ottawa and brutalizing people, how great it was. And not only did he get to brutalize people, but he was going to have a pool. It was the overtime, the money he was making was going to buy a pool for his family. The blood money. He was going to buy a pool for his family with the blood money, basically. The money he was getting paid. um, to trample all over the constitutional rights of the Canadian public. Yeah, I'm thumbing my nose at the Constitution and at the Canadian public. I'm brutalizing Canadian citizens who are doing nothing but exercising their rights, their human rights. And I'm going to get a pool. I wonder if Judas Iscariot, when he got those 30 pieces of silver for betraying Jesus, I wonder what he was planning to buy with that money. He probably wasn't planning to buy a swimming pool, but I wonder what he thought he was going to get with that money when he accepted it to betray Jesus. Probably had his eye on some nice stuff. 30 pieces of silver, that'd buy some pretty cool stuff. You know. Now, of course, he didn't live to spend it because he was overcome with guilt when he realized what he had done. When he realized the enormity of what he had done and his place now in history as the betrayer of Christ, as having actually betrayed the Christ, having actually betrayed Jesus, Son of the Creator and ruler of the universe. Yeah, I mean, he must have been, he was overwhelmed by that, and he went and he committed suicide. So he didn't actually get to spend the money. But when he accepted the money, I wonder what was going through his mind. I wonder when he had that bag of silver coins in his hand there, given to him by the enemies of Jesus, of which now he was one, because he was in league with them. I wonder what he thought he was going to buy with that money. We know what the police officer, the RCMP officer in Ottawa, was going to buy. He was going to buy a pool for his family with the blood money. Yeah, he was just one of many that was just laughing. Oh, it's a great thing. We get to brutalize the people, and we get paid a shit ton of money for doing it. See, these people are our enemies. Make no mistake, these people are our enemies. We've fallen away from God, and we've been given over to our enemies. Anyway, that's it. I'm up to 44 minutes now, which is amazing, because normally I don't have the memory capacity. Normally this would have shut down at around 28 minutes. I don't know why it's still going, but it is. Anyway, I'm going to shut it down now before it does shut itself down. Plus, it'll take forever to load this video now, too, so I think I better just shut it down now. Anyway, I've said what I wanted to say, and we'll talk to you all another day. Well, we'll talk to you later today, really. I'm cold and I'm having trouble breathing, and so I'm awake. And it's early and I don't like it, but it is what it is anyway. It turns out I'm not working today. That's another thing. I got a message from the people last night, and they would prefer that I come tomorrow, which is fine. It means I have an extra day to rest, and I could probably use it because I'm not feeling the greatest. So that's what I'll do. I'll just rest up. I'll get more things done around here when I'm not resting. I gotta do all my banking and all that today too. I'll pay a bunch of bills and stuff like that today. There's my Rocky. I'll hang out with Rocky. I know it's been kind of hard for him, me being away as much as I have been. So I'll hang out with Rocky today as well. Hey, we'll spend some time together, Rocky, today, eh? Me and my best friend are going to hang out with each other today. We will. All right, we'll talk to you later.